Michaela, you going to sit right there the whole time? Right out of the gate. Ready to go? We're good, Matt? Okay. All right, good to be back live and in person with these press conferences. Glad y'all are here. Thanks for coming out. Excited for camp, and it's an exciting time of the year for us. You know, we've established our culture in the last 2 years. It's been a hard 2 years in terms of that, but proud of our players and our staff for what they've done and the hard work and the heavy lifting they've done for the last 2 years. And as we go into year 3, it's kind of time, honestly, to reap some of those rewards and those benefits. And I like our leadership where we're at right now. We're more talented. It's a more talented team with the addition of some guys and the development of some other guys that have been in the program. And just looking forward to being in the fight in this league. As we get going in a competitive Big 12 conference, we'll be in the fight. And I'm excited to see our guys and again, reap some of those rewards of a lot of hard work between them and our staff. As we go into training camp, you know, focus really is a competitive physical training camp. Less practices because of the new NCAA rules and everything right now. So when it's time to be physical and do the contact and live, we've got to really go and go at a high level, staying healthy, and then really focus on Houston. And that'll be probably a little bit of an earlier focus. We've already started, obviously, on them as the summer has progressed, and so our players are pretty decently versed in them right now, but that's a big focus is training camp in UH and really not much more than that. So that's our focus. Let me give you a few updates and then we'll go ahead and open it up. Staff updates. Hired Nick Holt. Nick's a former D coordinator at SC and UW, Purdue, Western Kentucky. Nick will be our offensive analyst. We've added 2 analysts, Nick on offense, Artie Valero on defense. We added Artie in the spring. And I get some questions of why are you putting Nick Holt, a veteran defensive guy, on offense? Why are you putting Artie Valero, a veteran offensive guy, on defense? And here's why. Because both coordinators, KP and Sonny, you know, kind of wanted a different view of the game and the way that they can analyze the opponent, you know, a week ahead, exactly what they're doing on defense, or having a whole lot better idea. And being able to bounce different offensive and defensive strategic ideas against a guy that's done that. And both of those guys have done that. They've done it at a high level, 30-plus years in college football, and they've done it at the highest levels of college football and in the NFL. So that's the thinking on those 2 analysts, and I'm happy with their addition for this season. Sammy Morris, former Texas Tech great. Sammy's our Assistant Director of Player Development and will assist Troy Kimma. And a lot of the player matters, you know, our current player matters, being a great mentor to our players, community service, alumni relations, and a lot of those things that, you know, they kind of go unnoticed but are very important to our program behind the scenes, and connecting our players, getting them ready for life after football. Also the transition from high school to Texas Tech, and Sammy's he's got a great story to tell. You guys should ask him sometime. Listening to his story and the advice that he can give and some of the experiences that he's had. So another really good addition. And then the last one is quality control for us on special teams, helping Mark Tommerdahl out, will be Hunter Holmes. Okay. Player updates, if I could go through these. A couple of additions over the summer. Number 1, Kalen Geiger. Not number 1, not jersey number 1, but the first one is Kalen Geiger. Kalen is an outside receiver returner from Troy, Navarro Junior College, Pascal High School over in Fort Worth. I'm excited to have him, a veteran receiver, played very well at Troy for 2 years, a lot of success. He's had a really good summer. He's mature. He's competitive. He fit right into that room. It's a different type of receiver, really, than some of those other guys in that room. He's not 6'4", 6'5", like almost the rest of them. But he is really good after the catch and very, very athletic. Will help us in the return game as well. The other one is Robert Wooten. Robert is a defensive end from Virginia Tech, Stafford High School in the Houston area. He will have, actually with the COVID, 5 years eligibility, 4 years, whatever, however you look at it. Going to have to go through a waiver process. Not sure, to be honest with you, if he's going to be eligible this year or not. But even if he's not, we're happy to have him, and he'll be a significant contributor on our D-line in the years to come. John Holcomb, a tight end. He's elected to just retire from football, be a student here at Texas Tech, and so we wish him the best. And then on the injury front, kind of an update on injuries and that. Gilbert Abenemy ruptured a tricep this summer in early June, I know, Jarrett. Great young man, great family, and, man, this guy's just had a hard time staying healthy. So he'll be out for the year. Did that early this summer. Seth Collins, Rico Jeffers, Eric Ezekama, all full go. They're all fully cleared. We will monitor their volume in training camp, which is very normal for guys coming off of injuries. But that's all we're doing. They'll practice. They won't go through all of practice at the beginning of camp, and we'll just monitor those reps and the volume of work. But those three guys will be ready to go. Sir Roderick has had a great summer with his shoulder, and he's absolutely on track from the last time we talked. We said we know more about the middle of training camp to the end of training camp. That hadn't changed. So he's right on track in terms of that injury. Has had no setbacks. So I'm happy with Sir Roderick and the work that he's put in this summer and rehabbing and lifting with Dave and the rehab with Drew and our trainers, training staff. So he's done a really good job. So I think that's it. Did I miss anybody on that? No? Okay, so let's open it up for questions. All right. Don, you want to start us off? Did you wave him off? Oh, you're waving the mic in. See, aren't we glad to be back in person? Golly, I'm sick of Zooms. Huh? Oh, you're tweeting? Live tweets? All right, go ahead.
Since realignment is the hot topic, what are your thoughts on Texas Tech's standing in the potential for and whatever's going to happen?
Yeah. Well, obviously we're for the time being in the foreseeable future still in the Big 12, and the schedule hasn't changed, so it doesn't impact that any. When you look at it from a future standpoint, Don and I got great confidence in President Skuvenek and Kirby. Those two guys are working tirelessly, and Kirby's staff, to put Texas Tech in the right position. I think what we've done in the athletic department, I mean, we're now a Carnegie Research One institution. I think Texas Tech is positioned itself for whatever league we go into in a very good way. I think we're going to be, I think a very marketable program. The alumni base, the way our fans travel, the stadium. I think all of those things are good for us, whether we go to another league or whether we add to this league. Those will be decisions that, I won't make, and those guys will do a great job of putting Texas Tech in that position. But honestly, in terms of me, our players, our coaching staff, I mean, we got the task at hand, and it's right in front of us. It's training camp, and it's Houston, and that's it. And I have addressed the realignment with our players, but for half of that room, it doesn't matter to them. It doesn't have any effect on them or no bearing in terms of what's most important today and what's most important for this season. So those are the immediate focuses from us. But in terms of that, I'm confident that Kirby and President will get us in the right situation for Texas Tech.
Yeah. Approach to recruiting, and if so, how?
It hasn't changed our approach to recruiting, but now I think it's another piece of recruiting. And so it's absolutely something that you talk about, Jarrett, in NIL and the opportunities that I think we help our players with, the education and the support that our Texas Tech, our athletic department gives our guys. I'm in full support of the NIL. The thing, and I've been proud of the way our players have handled it so far this summer. And with the NIL comes responsibilities. And when you start engaging in some of those NIL opportunities, you need to understand that I've got responsibilities over here, whether it's marketing, it's contract lawyers, it's taxes, It's all the things, time that takes to have those opportunities, and that's something that is in addition to football and school for these players. And then on the other hand, they still have a responsibility to enhance their name, image, and their likeness by their brand. And that is simply done through the weight room, nutrition, sleep, the responsibility they have on social media for the things that they post, their name, their reputation. And as long as this over here, those responsibilities are done within a team concept, and they're a great team player, and they are grinding in the weight room and in the meeting room, and they're practicing good, and you have to play well, and that is promoted, then they will have opportunities, and they'll handle those in a responsible way. So I think more than anything, it's forced guys, if you want those opportunities, it kind of forces you to have a lot more responsibilities in college than they had previous. So I'm all for it, and I promote that, but I also bring that up to them that this right here, your name and your brand, you have to play well, and you have to represent yourself well, because people aren't going to hire you if you don't. And I think it's great, and our team has handled it very, very well so far.
Quarterback competition, and if so, where does that stand going into camp?
Yeah, just like we left training camp, all those quarterbacks have had a good summer. They're all healthy. Everything's gone well. No issues with Donovan Smith's shoulder or anything. He's not on pitch count anymore. So, yeah, absolutely, there's a competition. And I think, when we left spring ball, Tyler and Henry were a little ahead of those other guys. How does it shake out here in the first 7-10 days? It needs to start shaking pretty quick. They'll be fun to watch those guys. But, yeah, absolutely. Nobody's enshrined as the starter right now.
Do you have a timetable for announcing a starter? Or are you gonna
I don't. I think I hope it'll happen naturally, because then that means somebody's pulled away, and there's positives to that. The positive is you do it and you get the press conference out of the way, and you talk about it, and the team knows it, and there's continuity there. I wait later to announce it, then your first opponent doesn't know who it is, but they're also preparing for what the heck Sonny Cumbie's offense looks like. Is it what version of it with TCU, Air Raid, Texas Tech? Is it with this quarterback or that quarterback? So there's some competitive advantages of waiting later. But if it happens naturally in the middle of camp, we'll do it. But no set timetable.
Coach, you mentioned some of the additions that you made this offseason, a couple of them in the secondary. Who are some of those guys, just in general, because we have some returning starters, obviously, as well. Who are some of the guys in that room who have stood out and maybe being starters this year?
Well, when you ask about the additions, are you just talking about the whole secondary or additions?
Yeah, just the secondary as a whole.
Oh, as a whole.
Stood out as possible starters for this year.
Well, DeMarcus Fields will start. I think the biggest part of your question is you really mean the transfers, because that's in the young kids when you start talking about that. I'm so fired up about DeMarcus Fields being back. He's had a great summer. Eric Monroe back, improved Adrian Fry. You look at the safety position, we've upgraded at safety. Eric's getting better. Muddy Waters, Reggie Pearson, those guys are all going to be in the mix. Dadrion Taylor's had a really good summer. He's gained weight. He's gotten faster. Dadrion's played, started 3 or 4 games as a true freshman, and the same thing last year. So there's a guy that's going into a true junior year. Are we still calling them juniors? Yeah. He's got 3 years left, but he's a junior. Figure that. So that safety room is good, and then you look in the corner room. I already said an improved Adrian Fry. He's had a really good summer. You return DeMarcus, and then you add Malik Dunlap and Rashad Williams, Nate Floyd, Kobe Minor. Those are 2 young guys that continue to impress. We've got more depth in the secondary. I think we're going to be better, and we need to be.
Obviously, any year you want to go in with the expectation to make a bowl game and to win as many games as possible. But how much do you guys realize or rest the pressure on this team, on this coaching staff to reach at least 6
That's only by your question. I think we had the same pressure on me year 1, year 2. Last year we didn't even know if we were playing at this time. I mean, we barely released the second Big 12 schedule, if I'm not mistaken, right around this day, give or take a day or two. But I think pressure's what you want to talk about. I'm good. Yeah, we expect to be in a bowl game. We absolutely be expecting to be in a bowl game. We expect to be in a fight in the month of November and play meaningful Big 12 football games. So, yeah, the goal is to win the Big 12 championship. That's not changing here. I'm not coaching any harder and with any more pressure than I did year one here. But I will tell you this, I'm more convinced we can win here now than I was 2 years ago. Dead honest with that. Well, when you start talking about culture, you talk about the discipline and the accountability. That's what we have seen change dramatically. The demeanor of our players, coming in early, staying late, being football junkies, the things that they do in the summer that I believe make you tough and accountable. And so now it's time to reap some of those rewards and some of those benefits. And I fully understand that that is wins, and that's the left-hand side of the win column. And a lot of that right now in this league is focused on winning close games, and that's again another big focus for us. We went 0-4 our first year in one possession games last year. We went 4-2, arguably 4-3. Kansas State ended up being a 2-score loss, but a 1-score game all the way down to the wire until Deuce broke loose. So that's dramatic improvement. Now we're going to need to take another step to get us now into a winning record, into a bowl game and all that. And so that is the next step for us.
Matt, explain the value of the super seniors. I think you guys have more than anybody in the Big 12. You guys explain that, like how much valuable that is to your team.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris, the question was on the super seniors. We do have a lot, I think 10 maybe. And so the value that those guys bring more than anything is a veteran presence, a veteran leadership. The other thing, besides Muddy Waters, Kalen Geiger, and TJ Stormont, the other 7 guys have been in our program for 2 years. And they had a choice to leave, go to test the NFL waters. Some of them had draft grades, whatever it was, and they chose to come back. And I think those choices, more than anything, reinforce what we got going on in that locker room and behind those closed doors is the vibe in that locker room. If it was broke and it wasn't working and they didn't believe, whether it was believing in their coaches, in our schemes, in our training, in Dave Scholes, in nutrition, in the weight room, those guys wouldn't have come back. They would have left. And for them to come back, that was probably as big a reinforcement as I personally, as a head coach, could have gotten from anybody. More than any pat on the back or anything, was those guys saying, you know what, one more year, we're going to run this thing back one more year. And I think it's a mix. It's always a mix of those decisions of what's best for me individually, but also the team. And I think that will help our team significantly. Most of those guys are on defense, whether it's Schooler, it's Monroe, it's DeMarcus Fields, Rico Jeffers, Jacob Morgenstern. You start thinking those guys have played a lot of snaps, and they chose to come back, and that kind of gets me fired up. Yeah. Yeah, and as he is limited in training camp, those will be opportunities for those guys. For Xavier White, Taj, Chad had a really good spring. Cameron Valdez coming in, true freshman running back. Those guys will get more opportunities in training camp and really, towards the end of training camp and a lot of those live scrimmage situations. So who kind of emerges out of that group? My gut is that it'll be a little bit of a committee. We'll play them all.
Sort of a simple question, but Mason Tharp and General, those two freshmen had with John leaving, does that represent the opportunity?
Sure.
That they kind of grasp things a little quicker?
Yep, they have. Mason had a really good spring, and I've said it all summer. Mason will play as a true freshman. He's going to play in the opener. He's over, I don't know what he weighs now, 255. I mean, he told me yesterday in my office he grew an inch since he's been here. So he thinks he's 6'9", but we haven't measured him. But, Castles has put on close to 20 pounds. Both those guys, Jason Lloyd had a good summer. Those guys playing behind Kuntz, we'll see where they're at in training camp, but they're going to get those opportunities. And Mason had a good spring. I thought Jed Castles had a really good summer. So it's why you recruit. It's why we recruit, and those guys had a lot of choices, and they chose Texas Tech, and I think they're going to start reaping some of the rewards of that too, of that decisions that they made to come here. But, yeah, I'm excited about those young tight ends.
Coach, you just said that you're more convinced today than 2 years ago about your opportunity to be successful. I'm curious what's changed over the last 2 years most of you in that regard.
Just seeing how they work, seeing the buy-in, seeing what they do. I already said it, coming in early, staying late, the training, the leadership, all of those things. And that's what it takes before you start winning. It takes that. It takes a belief in each other. It takes a belief in, our core values, our plan to win. It takes a belief in our coordinators and the schemes on both sides of the ball, and seeing them buy in, seeing them coming in, and just spending more time. And I think those are all elements of a winning football program. And we all know at some point, and it's right now, you got to reap the rewards of winning football games. But I think those are all the things that lead to those wins. And it's been at a higher level than it's been since we've been here, and it continues to climb. And we're not taking steps back. It was a really low drama summer, and a high level of input and physical conditioning, the lifting, the stuff that we did in terms of in the meeting rooms this summer. I'm proud of those guys. So we continue to take those steps in the right direction. So that to me is, you got to have a little bit of belief without evidence. We do as a team and as a coaching staff before it ever materializes out on the field. That's always the right progression. It always happens in that progression.
Group that maybe surprised you, that become more of a voice in your program?
Yeah, you say new leaders. I would say that lends itself to either guys that are now in a little bit more of a leadership position, or new players. And I'd put Muddy Waters in that category. He's been a really good leader. DeMarcus really has been a quieter guy and a high production guy for us in the secondary the last 2 years, but now he's leading by his work ethic and his results, and people see that. Rico's always been a good leader. Tony Bradford and Jalen Hutchins have always done that. Those are kind of new leaders right there offensively. Berger has done a nice job, and Stormont, those are kind of newer guys in leadership roles. Dawson Deaton has always been there. So I thought Eric Ezekama is doing a nice job of leading. So we've got some new guys, and then some of those guys coming back continue to lead. And to me, you lead by your production and what you do first and foremost before you lead verbally.
Kind of following up on that line of questioning, you said in your opening statement that it's been, I believe you said, quote, a hard 2 years establishing your culture. Can you elaborate on that? How much trouble did you feel like you had with buy-in in the last couple of years, and how much of that has now been kind of washed out, so to speak?
I think, when I say hard is because it's not easy. If it was easy, it would have already been done before me. If it was easy, it would be anybody that could do it. And if it was easy, it'd be anybody in that locker room that could do it. It's not easy. It's hard. And it's hard to change mindsets, demeanors. It's hard to change the way guys do anything. We say in our building all the time, how you do anything is how you do everything. And that's from going to class, to being accountable off the field, to your actions, to living by our core values, to the weight room, to nutrition, all of those things. I mean, just look for evidence really no further than community service hours. Look no further than 73 73 or 74 guys with over a 3.0 in the spring. Okay. And that to me is a reflection of being accountable, doing what we ask you to do, and doing it in a good way. I don't think that has to do with academic ability. I think it has to do with being accountable, being accountable to each other, being accountable to your teammates, and doing what you're asked to do. And I think that absolutely bleeds over into football, into what KP and Sonny Cumbie ask our guys to do on offense and defense. It starts in the weight room. Academics has a part in it, and then it comes to football. And that's why it's hard. It's not a complicated answer. It's not a complicated thing. It's just hard. It really is. And I'm so proud of our guys. Are we there yet? No. A lot more to go. But there has been a lot of heavy lifting done the last couple years. And like I said, it's time to get to the point where we are winning games. And so we know how to practice. We know how to lift. And those are some of the things that I'm and this staff are awful proud of.
Matt, last year you talked a lot about how excited you were about the wide receivers.
Yeah. Well, two reasons he's going to be important early on. He's a veteran that's played very successful at Troy, in Division I for 2 years. Eric, as I already said, is going to be limited in training camp, so that's going to help. And then the second thing is we are talented at wideout, and they're all young. You got Trey Cleveland and Loic that had good years last year as freshmen. JJ was hurt all last year, but he had a really good spring. Jerron Bradley, a true freshman that had a good spring, this as a midterm high school graduate. So those are 4 guys I just mentioned that are all freshmen, really, redshirt freshmen, that are just young. And so I think having Kalen here and as long as he continues to progress competitively and everything, hopefully he can make a lot of plays at the beginning of the year while those young guys continue to grow up and get their feet wet on game day. But they're all playing on game day too, because you guys know we rotate our receivers.
And tight end wise, when you first got here, obviously that was an emphasis, and I'm just wondering if there's going to be, more production from that position. Is that something that Sonny, is going to do? More than anything, I say that because you mentioned Garb and
Yep. I think remain to be seen, but I think, Travis Kuntz has had a good 2 years. I'm glad he came back. He had a really good summer. He's 255 and he's running good. Those 2 young tight ends. I think some of their production that the media and people look at and evaluate is just straight catches. And so who's getting those catches? Is it Easy, Geiger? Is it some of the freshmen? We're throwing the ball to the running back. So sometimes those kind of dictate those numbers, but I fully expect those tight ends to be a part, probably playing a little bit of 12 personnel, depending on the how quick those young guys progress with Kuntz.
Go to Eric and then Jared to close. Just in terms of Tyler, how he's embraced this quarterback competition, coming in as a guy who people knew his name, there was hype on social media, just who he signed here.
Yeah.
How has he embraced that idea?
Tyler's embraced everything very well, whether it's the competition, because I think that, Eric, it goes right back to recruiting. I didn't promise him anything. I didn't promise him a starting job. I promised him an opportunity to come in and compete, and so he accepted that. So that's why that's easy. He has embraced that. He's embraced this community. Our team has been a great leader, both sides of the ball, old, young, and he's done a really nice job. I'm proud of him, but I think he's embraced the competition just like he's embraced everything else.
Can you give us an idea of where the competition is with the place kicker, kickoff specialist, and
God, I thought I was going to get out of here without talking about the kickers.
the return game too, please?
The return game. Yeah, I mentioned Kalen. I'm excited to watch. We got more punt returners, I think, this year. Miles Price, we're going to dial him up. Nate Floyd, Fry, Chooks, Geiger. We got a lot of choices at punt returner. Kickoff returner, Muddy, Geiger, Taj. Dadrion Taylor, a lot of those guys back there. The kicking competition, kick off and field goal, not punting. But those two competitions, kind of the same thing. I can say that it's going to go all the way down to Houston week, or if somebody pulls away. But as we go into training camp, those guys have both had good summers. Those guys were right at 89, 90% each one of them in the spring on a lot of kicks. So they both had improved springs and good. So between Jonathan and Trey, that'll be, I don't know how long it'll go. We'll let it play itself out. But they're going to be against each other, or against themselves, as I say it to them, starting tomorrow. Yeah. Every time we kick, we'll kick two. We always kick two. So.
All right, that'll do it for Coach. We'll have
Good?
Coach Patterson here.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
How we doing? I'm great.
Without the mic, just raise your hand. I'll point out who we're going to next. Started. Coach Bill.
Coach, how does it feel to have so much experience coming back on your defense, and how it will play into what the success of the football team will be this year?
Yeah, it's hard to replace experience. I feel really good. I feel confident. Obviously the expectations are higher. So I like where we are. Our kids are confident, and that gives you a confidence in what you're doing. They believe in what we're doing schematically. So, it's still got to translate to the, what we did toward the end of a year ago has nothing to do with what we're getting ready to embark on. So I think the biggest thing is just continue to improve and continue to build off what we did the last 4 or 5 games last year, and let that vault us forward and continue to move this program forward and trying to play championship level defense. But I think the experience, it just gives you a different type of confidence. Not a, I don't know. We're excited about it. I know that.
So, Jeff, going back to the experience you're bringing back, get a bunch of guys decide to come back. They had significant other opportunities. What does that say for your program? What does that say for what your defense has done and those guys' characters come back in one another?
Yeah, I think it just reinforces, that what goes on outside the walls of that building, really nothing really matters. It's what's going on inside those walls. I mean, at that time, when all those kids chose to come back, if you based everything on what you read or heard, you'd have thought the sky was falling. Geez, I'm at Home Depot and Colin Schooler calls me and said, "Hey, Coach, I hope you're having a good break." I thought he was calling me, telling me, "Hey, enjoyed it, appreciate everything." And he called me I'm at Home Depot, and he sits there and he goes, I didn't get a chance to see Coach Wells and didn't get a chance to tell him bye and everything and before break, and just want to let you know, hey, I'm coming back. And I was like, will you just repeat what you just said to me? He goes, yeah, I'm coming back. I was like going, good gosh. And that kind of started the whole thing, it was very important for DeMarcus Fields to want to graduate. So I just think it speaks to the chemistry and really what is really a true indicator of what's going on with this football program. We're moving forward. Just come be around our kids. Come stand next to them. Look at them. We're physically different. We're more disciplined. We have more people that think football is important, and it just takes time. We're heading into year 3, and when you can't get your hands on these guys, when you're doing everything through a computer screen, and you don't know who's going to play until after noon on Friday. That was a big challenge. So it's it's like, from December of last year, or anywhere after the Kansas game, okay, to spring football, it's like being a part of 2 completely different football programs. Seriously, it's like, what just happened? I'm talking that fast. From December, January, February, spring football, it was just, the whole mindset was just completely different.
Speaking of that mindset, with those guys coming back and the experience that you've got coming back, you're also not having to teach your that can help these guys?
Well, it's like I was telling someone the other day. I mean, like, I introduced myself to Tyree Wilson the Wednesday of the Texas game, and somebody asked me why I was rushing 3 people there at the end of that game. Well, you sit there, you had dadgum Eli limping, you had Jalen Hutchins limping. I just met this guy from Texas A&M who's now rushing the back. Just got him 2 quarterback sacks. His first day to practice was Wednesday of that week. So, yeah, So now, if you look at it, all summer long, okay, 3 and 4 days a week, our guys are out there and they're running through our scheme, running through calls, making adjustments, communicating. So I can't help but think that we're going to be farther ahead of where we were at the beginning of a year ago. And two, I just think the consistency of knowing each guy's skill set. There's been 2 years since I've been here. I have never felt like I had a grip on. I mean, our very first year, for example, if you take our starting spur position, the 2 guys that went through spring weren't even on the team when August got here. Yeah, our outside linebacker that plays into the boundary, same thing. The 2 guys that went through spring and took every single rep were not even available. One had pretty much a season-ending injury, and the other one left the team. So we sat there and completely revamped what we were going to do defensively in fall camp and from what we did in the spring. And then COVID, we didn't even go through spring. And then you get here in the summer, introduce yourself to Eric Monroe. I mean, we had a lot of new people, Brandon Boyer Randall. You can go on and on and on. And they're sitting there trying to learn your system through a video screen on a computer. I mean, it's just so different. I can't describe to you how challenging trying to teach, change a mindset, create chemistry, and we're in 120 different apartments or wherever they're looking at their videos, 6 different offices on the defensive staff. I mean, that was a challenge. So that's where I think being around our guys all spring, being around our guys all summer, and then now heading into fall camp, we're just farther ahead.
Go to Eric. How close is Nelson to being back to who he was pre-injury, and how big of a boost is that on the defense?
Yeah, I mean, in doing everything so far, he looks great. He's 278 pounds, so he looks completely different. He doesn't look like the Nelson of 2 years ago. So I like where he is. He looks great. He's strong. He likes being big. And I just can't help but think that it's going to translate onto the field. Just challenged him every day. Just, hey, man, I need a consistent version. Just try to stack success every day and come out and become a better player.
Go to Jared.
Coach, it appears that the secondary has been upgraded to talent, depth, experience, all that. How does that help you scheme up?
Well, and we'll see. We'll see how. I know talent-wise we look different, okay, and we are more talented than what we were a year ago. We have a little bit more depth than what we had a year ago. With the addition of Malik Dunlap and Muddy and Rashad Williams and Reggie Pearson Jr., those guys are all really good football players. It's just we got to translate that onto the field. But I like the improvements that we made with those guys. And the development of a guy that I think is going to have a really good year too, and he kind of goes under the radar, is Dadrian Taylor. He's really gotten stronger. He's a guy that he had never played defense before, and he had played running back his whole life. He had never played a down of defense until he gets to Texas Tech. So I think he is a part of that equation, and I just keep challenging our secondary. Let's just continue to build off what we did a year ago. I mean, if you just took the Big 12 standings, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know we went from 10th to like 4th, 10th to 5th, 10th to 3rd, 10th to 2nd in like pass efficiency defense and yards per game and yards per attempt and things like that. We really improved on from the year before. And a lot of it was we eliminated the explosive pass plays, so we just want to continue to play tighter coverage and play sound vertical coverage, I think that's the biggest area I want to challenge those guys. And then obviously when the ball breaks, I thought we really made a nice jump last year. When the ball broke and did split the line of scrimmage, our guys did a great job tackling running backs and getting them down and eliminating a lot of explosive runs.
You mentioned Reggie Pearson. What does he bring to the team, and how do you plan to utilize his skills?
Yeah, if you watch his video, I was actually sitting I was coming back. I took my grandkids snow skiing, and I was sitting in the airport in Las Vegas, and I read his story at Wisconsin, and I'm saying, man, I don't know why. I can't tell you why, but I just looked him up, hit him up on Twitter, and said, hey, call me. Kid called me in 3 minutes. And so I'm walking through the Las Vegas airport, and I'm talking to him, and I just said, look, I'm not going to guarantee you anything, but I'm going to fight for you. And here's a kid that started 13 games, played in the conference championship game against Ohio State, and you watch him, you watch him knock that quarterback out from Michigan. You see he's a physical, he is, when your dad calls you the funeral director, geez Louise, he's a very physical kid. When you look at him, he's just got this baby face, but man, he is, you can go online and see shows his pictures. The before and after. This kid is like, he's bowed up, and he's a tough kid, and he's obviously from Detroit. His father's a coach, mother's a school nurse, and things like that. But Coach and I, we met with our medical staff, and I just told him, said, look, all I ask you to do is just research it. Just research this thing, and they did an unbelievable job through, Mayo Clinic and Boston General, and the Patriots, the Cowboys, the Texans. They were. My hats off for those guys, because I thought, there ain't no chance they're going to clear him, and when they did, they flew him out to Boston, and it just, what a great story it's going to be. It's an absolute great story, and but again, I know that's talking about a lot of things, but man, I'm excited about him, because he just brings a toughness and a mentality that we need. To play great defense. Yeah.
Malik Dunlap listed at 6'3" and 215. A lot of guys that size play wind up at safety.
Yeah.
What is it that makes him a quarterback at that height?
He's shockingly. He's actually, as of yesterday, 6'3", 218, and you watch him run. I keep scratching my head, saying the same thing. I say, ain't no way this guy can play corner. He's got to be a safety. And I'm just sitting there and I watch him and go, I don't know. You look at the size of the corners in the NFL right now. A lot of people are playing a lot of cover 3, and a lot of people are playing a lot of cover 2, which kind of is what we are. And I just sit there and I look at him, and I'm with you, Don. I'm not sure that he won't be a safety eventually. He's open to it. I told him right now, I'm gonna leave you at corner for the time being, and until. But he just brings a presence to you. Especially you put him into the boundary. Now you got a big guy. He just matches up on some of these tight ends and some of the bigger wide receivers that you see in this league, and we haven't had that. But there's no doubt. He's a guy that he runs really well for a guy that size. He is a big athlete, and it's like you look at him and you walk up and go, "There's no way that kid's a corner, no way." But you watch him move and you watch him run, and you say, "I see why he's playing corner." Yeah.
Coach, you got a couple of scouts who remember redshirt freshmen from last year from up north at Tasco and Amarillo, L.B. Moore and Joseph Funk. What's it going to take for those guys to develop into better football players and to be ready to play for Texas?
Well, honestly, I thought L.B. Moore was probably one of the most improved guys we had this spring. He had a great spring, was very, very productive. So I think just continue. He weighs 265 pounds. He came in here probably at 230. So he looks completely different. He's bought in. He changed his body. If he just continues to develop and stay on track, he's going to just continue to build the depth that we'll have up front. And could be a guy that could eventually start seeing some playing time if he stays on that same trajectory. Of course, then the GOAT, Plunk. He's probably the defense's favorite. He's changed his body. He's just such a football player. Again, I'm just telling you, the kid wants to be a coach, and I can't say enough good things about him. I mean, you could, he's a guy that's he's learning to play defensive back, obviously being an option quarterback coming out of high school. But, man, I'm just glad that he's part of our team and glad that he just brings I don't know what it is. The players love him, and we nicknamed him the GOAT. We got a lot of nicknames. Goat, Rabbit, Muddy. No, he's not quite there yet. No, but I tell you what, he's a smart kid.
You mentioned that you like to cross train a lot of guys on defense. How do you sort of balance keeping these guys versatile without stretching them too thin?
Yeah, I think we've kind of tweaked our system a little bit to try to help with that. Like, for example, well, it'll take me a while to explain that, but we've just done some things, I think, number one, that will help them in basically, I'll just tell you this like this. We just use that as what we call the same as concept. Say, hey, this is the same as this, and we just try to teach in a lot of broad general concepts, and we think that helps them. Hey, so if I'm here at this position and I know what this concept means, then when I'm playing this position, here's my responsibility. That's about the fastest and easiest way I could probably explain that. All right, you bet. Thank you. All right.
I think there's a lot of guys that have been experienced. I think we have some guys on the outside with Eric Ezekama, Travis Kuntz, our running backs with Sir Roderick. You look around, you say experience, and then, classification. There's some guys that are freshmen, but they played a lot as true freshmen. And so I think that's one of the things. You add in a quarterback, Columbia, who's played a lot. You add in a quarterback like Tyler Shuck, who's played a lot. I think there's no substitute for experience. I mean, guys that have been through a season, because one of the things people, you don't understand how long a season is, how taxing it is mentally, how taxing it is physically. These kids know how to prepare. They know how to take care of their bodies for a full season. And so I do believe, the experiences, you either learn from them and you grow from them and you advance yourself. And I think that these kids have gone through a lot. Adversity. They've had some success, but they've gone through a lot and experiences from that standpoint too. And I think that is one of the things that we can lean our hat on. If you're looking at a position group, I think our offensive line, you always start there. Really, you start with the offensive line. And I really like what Coach Farmer has done with that group. They're a talented group. They seem to have really come together through the spring and summer. So I'm looking forward to those guys. I think they're probably one of the groups that like all great offenses, you hang your hat really on the offensive line and quarterback. Yeah, it's different, but at the same time, and this is something that, when you've stayed somewhere a long time, which I was fortunate to do really in both cases, you realize that the kids, sometimes that as coaches, sometimes we put a cap on what kids can learn. And when you have a foundation of what you do and you want to be really, really good at it, but when you have something that's new and that's different, kids really are excited about it. Their attention to detail and their attention to coaching seems to increase, and I think that's what we came upon is you want to do some of the things that they did really well here, expand upon it, and continue to keep those. But the kids have been unbelievable in terms of learning, in terms of their knowledge, and just really have been sponges in terms of what we've tried to do on offense and what we've tried to teach them. And so that part's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun of coming in, and they had the schemes. The verbiage, everything in offense and really everywhere is pretty similar. And so they had a pretty quick handle on it. So that part's been fun. It's a new challenge, but it was met with a group of kids that were very open-minded. They were very excited, and they did a great job. They're a very coachable group.
Has there been anything else that surprised, or anything that surprised you about the point you actually got your hands on to around them during the spring, and now that you get back now, is there anything that surprised you from when you took the job?
I just think that like I said, this is a really fun group to coach. Like, there's not a ton of ego. There's not a ton of guys that are kind of lone wolves. It's a group that seems to be very close, and some of that is gained through experience. And that's probably the thing that I've enjoyed the most is the attitude, the outlook, and really the toughness that this group has shown.
Yeah, coming off a year where he started at Oregon with one of the bigger names in the transfer portal, how has Tyler embraced the idea of a quarterback competition?
He's really came in and done it as well as you could have. I talked to our younger quarterbacks, and in coaching and in playing, you learn from everybody. You learn good, you learn bad, and I'm telling these guys, like, you have an older quarterback that has played in some of the highest caliber games in his conference, who's came in with humility, who's came in and done everything he could by his actions to earn the respect of his teammates. And I think part of that is the transparency when you're recruiting somebody of what you tell them versus what really happens. And so I think here with Coach Wells and myself, it's always, and I'm always a check, hey, Tyler, the things that we told you when we recruited you, how are we doing on that? Is it what we told you? How does it score out since you're here now? Because we never guaranteed him that he would come here and be the starting quarterback. You have an opportunity, but that was never a guarantee. That was never part of the recruiting pitch. I think guys that come in through the transfer portal, they want to know, how can you develop me as a player? How can I get better, and how can I have a lot of success on a large platform, in which he can have that here at Texas Tech. And so for all of us, it's a great sign of humility, his confidence, how he's embraced the women's clinic. He was out here, camps, he was out here, very involved, very engaging young man. And so excited that he's here, and really all the guys can learn from him. The competition is very much open as we go into it, but he's done a phenomenal job by leading, really by his actions. And then, if you lead by your actions, but you don't have a lot of ability, there's not many people that will follow. But if you have ability and you lead by actions, then people tend to follow.
Yeah, going off that, how have you seen that room as a whole just progress since you've been here? Is there anything you really need to see from specific guys going into fall camp?
Yeah, I think the room has grown a lot in a positive way. I think that the guys have, for one, with Tyler coming in, again, with his experience, you've got two younger guys and Donovan Smith and Barron Morton that are very, very talented and very, very hungry. You've got Henry Colombi, who's been through a lot of battles, who's won football games. He's beat West Virginia in the Big 12 against a really good football team, who came in to Lubbock playing really well. And then, Parker McNeil and Maverick McIver that are in there as well. But I think that those guys, it's always hard because there's one guy that plays. It's not like receiver where you have two or three guys that can play. You have six guys in the rotation. It's one guy that plays. And so it's a fine line of I want to support the guy. I got to have chemistry, and I have respect, a healthy respect for the guy sitting next to me, but I also want that job. And I also want to beat his tail out. And so how do you balance all that? I think that's the name of the game of coaching, is managing people. And I think that the quarterbacks have competed very well. They're a mature group. And, they've done a good job of taking coaching, and they've worked extremely hard.
Go to Don and David and Jared.
Sonny, you saw TJ storming up close last year
Mm-hmm.
for a full season. Now he is on his fifth team in 5 years. I'm curious what characteristics does he have that's enabled him to walk in the door and be an immediate contributor. Looks like pretty much everywhere that he has been in all these stops.
Yeah, TJ, he walks in our door every day with a cup of coffee and a cup of cold brew. And so he's like an old man now to our group. I mean, he's like the only guy on our team that drinks coffee. And so he comes in like the savvy veteran that has been a few places. He's been a few stops. And I think one of the things about TJ is he's got a unique upbringing. I think it's Power Cross Ministries that his family runs on the East Coast. And so he has been around a bunch of different kids and a bunch of different situations his whole upbringing and his whole life. And so coming into new places is really not that difficult for him. Without having the restrictions of COVID, he's been able to be around his teammates a lot more. He's been able to ingrain himself in that room. And in terms of how he looks physically, I've known him 2 years, and this is the best he looks physically. This is the best that he moves. And he has a healthy confidence about himself, but he also doesn't come into a meeting room or a team room or an offensive line room and rub guys the wrong way. And so I think that personality-wise, he's got a great personality. So, and then the biggest thing too, Don, we say all these things about all these positions, but like the bottom line, and it's like same for coaches, like can I coach or not? Can they play or not? And he can play pretty well. He does some things that sometimes he goes into his own techniques, but he ends up getting the job done. And so at the end of the day, his results are positive. And he's been able to do it at a bunch of different places. He's came back with a goal of winning a lot of football games and setting himself up to have a career after Texas Tech in the NFL. And so he's been very driven this offseason.
Sonny, Matt mentioned that obviously quarterback hasn't been named yet. Can you go through maybe is it a daily process when you guys talk about that? Is it a weekly thing? And as a guy that wants to get that offense up and running really quick in your first year here, when is the latest you would prefer to have that?
Yeah, I think the latest would be game week. You can't really put a timetable on it, but that would be the latest. And I think again, before you start fall camp, it's a clearly defined, just like in recruiting, just like in any conversations you have with players. It's just clearly defined. These are the things that we're looking for. We're looking for a guy that can move the offense, that can communicate, that can operate, that's very accurate, that takes care of the football, makes good decisions, and then also, those are things that are measurable. But then there's also that element of like, man, when that guy's in, the ball moves. When that guy is in, it may not be by the book or it might not be by exactly the coaching points that you give them, but man, the ball just moves. And they end up scoring points when they're in. And so those are things that it's not as tangible in terms of grading, but the things that they're going to be judged upon and the decisions made based upon are those things that are tangible. You do talk about them up front, so they all know when that decision's made. It's not a surprise. Well, you didn't tell me that you're grading this, or and sometimes you get too into the stats of it, and that's where, hey, let's go back during team periods when it was good on good, all things were equal, who moved the ball. Also, do the other 10 guys on the offense, do they play better because this guy's on the field? Do they respect this guy? Is there a clearly defined leader? Those are some of the things that you can kind of push a kid and prod a kid on, but a lot of times you can install that and teach it, but also kids naturally do that. So you'd like to have it done and as quickly as possible, but the latest would definitely be Monday before the Houston game.
So Jared and Kale and Lance are both.
Coach, in terms of people on the staff that you bounce things off of, or that you run things by, in terms of developing your scheme, implementing your scheme, and then ultimately calling plays on game day, who are those guys?
I think that really the whole group. I mean, you've got a group of guys. DeAndre Smith is a running back coach, has coached a lot of places. He's coached a lot of really good players. He's coached on staffs that were very, very highly successful. The same with Coach Luke Wells. These guys have coached a lot of football. Coach Filani coached a lot of football. Steve Farmer's been an offensive coordinator himself for a long time. So in terms of our position coach guys, our off-the-field guys, those are the guys you really hone in on. And you throw things out and collectively, and people ask all the time. It's our players' offense ultimately. They're the ones doing it, and then I want our room to have an open forum in terms of ideas, in terms of practice structure. If we're not getting enough of something to develop our players in the course of practice, we need to script that in. And so as far as a sounding board, we've got a lot of young guys: Matt Clark, Jake Brown, Coach Holt just came on board, and so those guys in our room, it's never a deal where you just close your ears to anybody. You listen. At the end of the day, you have to make a decision based off what you think is the best for your players and the best for your unit. But it's a really experienced group that knows a lot of football. And the thing I like about them too is they've embraced me coming in, an outsider, and they're open to doing and trying different things from an offensive standpoint. Yeah. No, I know it. You can't give him too much love.
Yeah, we talked about Dalton Rickon a little bit. First, how did you get him? Last year he was kind of on the fence, going through concussions, getting married this summer. How did you kind of get him through to hang on and come back to us?
Yeah, Dalton is a unique young man. He's got a lot of things going on, a lot of interests, and very getting married. That's a big life stage right there. So applaud him in that, and that's a challenge in itself. And then playing college football, And so I think that, he came through spring and was kind of slow going, but is really towards the end of spring, I think got his legs under him and got a better feel for what we're doing and seems to be having a lot of fun doing it. That position with Miles, McLean, Dalton, you have Sterling Galban and Nehemiah Martinez there. But like between McLean and Mannix, those are like, you got Storman on the offensive line that drinks coffee and is an old guy. And then you got McLean and Sterling, McLean and Rigg, who Rigg's married. So you've got a lot of experience there. So I think that Rigg enjoys being around the group. He's definitely top end, has some speed, and want to try to put him in those situations to capitalize on it.
What do you really like when you see him out on the field? When you got to see him a little bit, what do you really appreciate to see him back there?
I think he obviously his top end speed. We like guys that can run really fast, but I think he's tough. I think he has a nasty, tough streak about him that comes out whenever he plays football.
Yeah, hey, you're going to be back in the Jones on September 11th, first time in 9 years or so. Slunging around there in your career. Do you have emotions coming into that game?
Yeah, well, Lance, I've been in the Jones a few times since then. So yeah, I've been back. Yeah, not on that side. Yeah, no, it's every time coming back. It was always a lot of positive emotions and a lot of positive things going on. And I think the biggest thing is we want to be playing really well, because we want our fan base to be as excited about Texas Tech football as they are anything. And we understand we have a responsibility to play at a certain level for that to happen. And our players have done everything up to this point to put ourselves in position to do that. The Jones is an unbelievable home field advantage. I know that this is not a place when the schedules come out. TV dictates just about everything that, as we've seen, that goes on in college football. But when it comes out on Monday, if it's a night game in Lubbock, Texas, whoever they're playing is not very fired up about that. And so hopefully we'll have a lot of those. That means we're playing well. But if it's at 11 a.m., again, we don't want them to be very excited about coming to play in Lubbock, Texas. And so it's a great stadium. The improvements, and in terms of the facilities is unbelievable. And I know our fan base is a passionate group, and we want them to be cheering us on and giving them something to be very passionate for and staying for 4 quarters. And we appreciate the ones that do.